The story opens with a young commoner facing execution at the hands of several nobles. Looking down on him for being nothing more than an ordinary mortal with almost no magical talent, they ridicule him and even challenge him to attack them with everything he has. The man obeys and casts a spell, but his magic is so weak that it does little more than make them laugh. After amusing themselves at his expense, one of the nobles decides to end things. He unleashes a powerful spell that strikes the young man head-on, engulfing him in flames. As his life fades away, his only regret is that he never had the chance to study magic more deeply. The story then shifts to a completely different scene. Inside the royal palace, a group of maids happily gathers around a newborn prince. However, the baby suddenly panics as if he is under attack and immediately fires a fireball toward the ceiling. At the same time, celebrations fill the streets as the citizens rejoice over the birth of the 7th Prince of Saloum. Years pass and the scene returns to the palace. The servants are frantically searching for the young prince who has once again disappeared somewhere inside the castle. Before long, the boy runs into several people, introducing us to Lloyd de Saloum, the protagonist of the story. Lloyd quickly asks them not to reveal his location to the maids before slipping away. After he leaves, the people begin talking about his extraordinary abilities. They explain that Lloyd displayed remarkable intelligence from the moment he was born. He learned to speak unusually early and spent his childhood studying spellbooks instead of behaving like a normal child. Some have even started believing that he might be the reincarnation of William Bordeaux, the legendary founder of magic itself. The narration then reveals that Lloyd truly is a reincarnated individual. He explains that he was the commoner who died years ago and somehow found himself reborn as the 7th Prince of Saloum, while retaining every memory from his previous life. Unlike most royals, Lloyd has no interest in status, fame, or political power. The only thing that matters to him is expanding his knowledge of magic. Having lived his previous life as a powerless commoner, he now possesses magical potential far beyond anything he once imagined. Later, Lloyd visits the royal library and is instantly captivated by the overwhelming number of books available to him. Unfortunately, his peaceful reading session does not last long before one of the maids finally discovers his hiding place. This is where Silpa is introduced. Although she serves as a maid, she is also Lloyd's personal bodyguard. Soon afterward, she begins training Lloyd in swordsmanship. As his instructor, Silpa reminds him that members of the royal family are expected to master the sword in addition to magic. During their sparring session, Lloyd secretly relies on magic to gain an advantage. By reading Silpa's movements in advance, he can predict every action she takes, making it almost impossible for her to surprise him. He further boosts his performance by enhancing his own movements through magic. Silpa eventually notices that something unusual is happening. After inspecting her weapon, she realizes that Lloyd secretly altered its reach with magic, allowing him to land attacks that should have been impossible. As if that were not enough, Lloyd is also using magic to float so he can remain level with her during the match. Silpa is stunned by his talent. She points out that even skilled court mages struggle to maintain 2 spells simultaneously, yet Lloyd appears to be doing it effortlessly. What she does not realize is that she only detected half of what he was actually casting. In reality, Lloyd was maintaining 4 separate spells at once, including enhancements to both his physical abilities and magical power. Several hours later, Lloyd is relaxing in the bath alongside the palace maids. Since he is still a young child, Silpa is responsible for looking after him and helping with his daily needs. Despite this, Lloyd can barely sit still. His mind is already focused on returning to his studies and continuing his magical research. During the bath, one of the maids brings up a mysterious book known as Grimoire. According to the story, it was sealed away because it contained a demon that once threatened the kingdom of Saloum. The maids assume the tale will frighten Lloyd, but the exact opposite happened. Instead of being scared, he becomes even more intrigued. Meanwhile, his adorable appearance causes the maids to start arguing among themselves about who will get to sleep beside him that night. Taking advantage of the distraction, Lloyd quietly slips away. The mention of a forbidden section in the library has completely captured his interest. Later that night, he secretly makes his way toward the restricted area. A group of guards stands watch at the entrance, but Lloyd simply casts an invisibility spell and walks past them unnoticed. The guards remain confident because they believe the true obstacle lies beyond them. They explain that the entrance was sealed by 10 of the kingdom's most powerful mages who combined their abilities to create a barrier that nobody could ever break. To Lloyd, however, the supposedly impossible seal is little more than a minor inconvenience. With a simple spell, he effortlessly breaks through it and steps inside. The hidden chamber immediately fills him with excitement. After spending years studying magic, he never knew a place like this existed within the palace. Lloyd also decides that once he finishes exploring, he will restore the seal so nobody realizes he was ever there. As he searches through the forbidden books, something suddenly catches his attention. One of the books begins moving by itself. A moment later, a demon emerges from its pages and introduces himself as Grimoire. Grimoire is shocked that someone would willingly enter such a dangerous place and questions Lloyd's sanity. Although the demon appears before him, it quickly becomes obvious that he remains trapped by magical restraints connected to the book itself. Realizing Lloyd can interact with him, Grimoire immediately asks to be set free. At that moment, Lloyd understands that he is speaking with the very demon sealed inside the forbidden tome. Trying to tempt him, Grimoire promises unimaginable wealth in exchange for his freedom. However, Lloyd instantly sees through the deception and points out that the gold is nothing more than an illusion created by turning dust into fake treasure. The demon's confidence disappears almost immediately. Lloyd then explains that this kingdom has given him access to countless magical resources and knowledge. Because of that, he has no intention of allowing a dangerous demon to threaten the place he now calls home. He further reveals that the original seal has weakened with age, and rather than releasing Grimoire, he intends to replace it with a much stronger one. With no other options left, Grimoire desperately changes his approach and offers Lloyd a deal. In exchange for his freedom, he promises to share the secrets of ancient magic. The proposal immediately catches Lloyd's attention. Remembering how the nobles looked down on him and denied him opportunities in his previous life, he decides to take the risk. Without hesitation, he casts a spell and breaks the seal that had been binding the demon. The moment he is released, Grimoire starts laughing. He mocks Lloyd for being naive enough to trust him and abandons his promise of teaching ancient magic. Instead, he immediately unleashes a devastating attack. To his surprise, Lloyd calmly raises a magical barrier that completely neutralizes the spell. Rather than feeling threatened, Lloyd becomes intrigued by the power of the attack. Excited by the unfamiliar magic, he eagerly asks Grimoire to show him more. The demon mistakes Lloyd's curiosity for mockery and becomes increasingly frustrated. He continues bombarding him with one attack after another, unable to understand how every spell is being stopped so effortlessly. What confuses him even more is the fact that his attacks are fueled by dark magic. Meanwhile, Lloyd treats the battle like a study session. Instead of defending himself out of necessity, he carefully analyzes every spell, because the dark arts fascinate. As the attacks continue, Lloyd suddenly succeeds in absorbing the magical energy contained within them. He immediately begins experimenting with the newly acquired power. While testing it, he accidentally injures one of his fingers, yet instead of backing away, he becomes even more excited by the discovery. Wanting to learn more, Lloyd encourages Grimoire to continue attacking him. Unable to tolerate the situation any longer, the enraged demon transforms and grows a second head. He then begins preparing the strongest spell at his disposal. The sight only makes Lloyd more interested. What captures his attention is not the spell itself, but the fact that Grimoire is casting two spells simultaneously, something Lloyd previously believed to be nearly impossible. However, even Grimoire's ultimate attack proves useless. The spell crashes into Lloyd's barrier and fails to leave a single scratch. For the first time, genuine fear takes hold of the demon. Realizing victory is impossible, he immediately attempts to flee. Unfortunately for him, Lloyd had already anticipated such a reaction and secretly sealed the entire area with another barrier. Driven into a corner, Grimoire lashes out once more. This time, however, Lloyd acts first and quickly charges a powerful fire spell. At that moment, the demon finally understands the truth. Lloyd is not a normal human at all. His mana reserves are absurdly large, and a single attack is enough to knock Grimoire to the ground. Afterward, Lloyd innocently asks why Grimoire failed to defend himself. To the demon, the question sounds like pure ridicule. It also becomes increasingly clear that Lloyd has no real understanding of how terrifying his own strength actually is. Not long later, Lloyd casually uses magic to repair all the damage caused during their battle, and restores the room to its original state. Meanwhile, Grimoire quietly remains nearby, behaving as obediently as a trained pet. As they talk, Lloyd mentions that ordinary magic cannot kill demons and becomes curious about their lifespan. He asks how long demons can survive. The question alone terrifies Grimoire. Instinctively, he takes several steps backward. Without wasting another second, he immediately pledges his loyalty and asks Lloyd to allow him to serve under him. Lloyd accepts the request without much thought. At the same time, Grimoire privately concludes that Lloyd probably views him as nothing more than an interesting research subject. A moment later, Lloyd asks whether he is capable of changing forms. When there are no canon of every champion, no weather compatible or descending when there are location. when there are no canon of every champion has a chance of setting for their life essential. There was no gamer so powerful that is enjoying primarily transparency. The demon instantly transforms into a small and adorable creature. Deep down, he still hopes he might find an opportunity to manipulate Lloyd if the boy lowers his guard. However, the moment Grimoire embraces him and attempts to peer into his mind, he freezes. Inside Lloyd resides an overwhelming amount of mana, along with a monstrous presence unlike anything the demon has ever witnessed. The experience instantly convinces Grimoire that resistance is pointless. From that point forward, he decides that cooperating with Lloyd is by far the safest. The following day, a young noble finishes preparing for the morning and makes his way toward the library, where Lloyd is once again absorbed in reading. This introduces Albert de Salou, Lloyd's older brother. Soon after meeting up, the two head toward the training grounds. Lloyd explains that Albert is the king's second son and currently the strongest candidate to inherit the throne in the future. Before long, it becomes Lloyd's turn to demonstrate his abilities. Not wanting to attract unnecessary attention, he deliberately suppresses his power and fires only a tiny fireball toward the targets. The attack barely manages to touch them, leading the observers to conclude that while Lloyd possesses some talent, he still has plenty of room for improvement. Shortly afterward, Albert announces that he has other responsibilities to handle and leaves the area along with everyone else. Once the training ground is completely empty, Lloyd becomes visibly excited. Finally alone, he decides to test a double casting technique he recently discovered in one of Grimoire's ancient books. The demon immediately objects and explains that such a technique should only be possible for demons because they possess two mouths, allowing them to cast multiple spells simultaneously. From this point onward, Lloyd starts calling Grimoire by the nickname Green. After hearing the explanation, Lloyd suddenly comes up with a solution and instantly absorbs Green into his own body. The sight horrifies the demon, who has never witnessed a human absorb a demon before. The two then begin preparing the experiment together. During the process, Green suddenly notices something shocking and realizes that Lloyd has mastered spell accumulation. Lloyd casually reveals that he was simply trying to stack 100 spells at the same time. The statement nearly leaves Green speechless. He quickly explains that the technique was originally intended for combining only 1 or 2 spells, not hundreds. Ignoring the warning, Lloyd continues. Almost immediately, an enormous amount of magical energy starts gathering around him. Even Green becomes frightened because he has never seen such a ridiculous concentration of mana in one place. After several moments of preparation, Lloyd successfully merges opposing magical attributes together. The result is a gigantic explosion that erupts within the castle itself. Elsewhere, Albert is having a conversation with the people who had previously been watching Lloyd train. Suddenly, someone glances outside the window and notices something strange. Without warning, the surroundings have become so dark that it appears as though night has fallen in the middle of the day. Returning to Lloyd, Green is still trembling after witnessing the result of the experiment. It finally dawns on him that Lloyd did not merely create a powerful spell, he actually tore open space itself. Completely panicked, Green immediately begs him to close the rift before something disastrous happens. Without much concern, Lloyd casually fixes the problem and seals the opening. Seeing him accomplish something so absurd with ease only reinforces Green's belief that Lloyd is far from normal. The next morning, Green picks up a newspaper and quickly notices that the mysterious phenomenon has become the biggest story in the kingdom. The strange hole that appeared in the sky is now making headlines everywhere. While reading, another article catches their attention. It reports that a team of A-rank adventurers recently conquered a dangerous high-level dungeon. The story instantly sparks Lloyd's curiosity and gives him the urge to explore one himself. The problem is that leaving the palace unnoticed is easier said than done. To solve this issue, Lloyd takes an ordinary acorn and uses magic to create a perfect duplicate of him. Even after making the clone, he remains cautious because Silpa is sharp enough to notice something suspicious if she looks too closely. Before long, Lloyd quietly slips away from the castle by flying through the air with magic. It is then revealed that Green's soul has been transferred into the clone while Lloyd absorbed the demon's original body. Because of this unusual arrangement, Green is able to exist alongside both of them at the same time. After successfully escaping the palace, Lloyd begins thinking about where he might find a dungeon. His search is interrupted when he spots a group of orcs pursuing a young woman nearby. At first, the situation looks dangerous, but the woman quickly proves that she can handle herself. Without much effort, she defeats every orc that comes after her. Once the battle ends, she immediately senses that someone is watching and calls out for the hidden observer to reveal himself. Lloyd becomes slightly nervous. If the woman recognizes who he really is, she will quickly realize that he is a prince of Saloon. Since he refuses to come out, the woman decides to investigate personally and climbs toward his location. When she finally reaches him, Lloyd's appearance looks different thanks to a disguise spell he cast beforehand. He also introduces himself using a fake name to avoid suspicion. The woman then introduces herself as Tao, a B-rank adventurer who specializes in martial arts. Almost immediately, it becomes obvious that Tao is struggling to maintain her composure. She can barely look directly at Lloyd because she finds him incredibly attractive. She soon reveals that she is 18 years old and jokingly remarks that she has spent her entire life waiting to meet someone like him. Before long, it becomes clear that Tao's imagination is already running wild, and she starts picturing Lloyd as her future boyfriend. Ignoring her fantasies, Lloyd gets straight to the point and asks if she knows where he can find a dungeon. Tao eagerly volunteers to guide him. In fact, she becomes even more enthusiastic after realizing this could be an opportunity to spend more time with him. Not long afterwards, the pair arrives at a dungeon. As they travel deeper inside, Tao enthusiastically defeats every monster they encounter, hoping to impress Lloyd with her strength. Meanwhile, Lloyd pays far more attention to the dungeon itself than to the battles. He spends most of his time examining the creatures, environment, and various discoveries they come across. After exploring for a while, they eventually stop to rest and set up camp. During their conversation, the topic shifts to a mysterious power known as Ki. Lloyd asks whether Ki was the technique Tao used when she fought the orcs earlier. She confirms his suspicion and is surprised that he already knows about it. Her opinion of him rises even further because most nobles and royals know very little about Ki despite their status. Tao explains that Ki is deeply connected to breathing technique. According to her, those who master it can draw out physical abilities far beyond normal human limits. She also reveals that developing the ability to sense Ki usually requires years of intense training and dedication. At the same time, she reassures Lloyd that he does not need to work so hard to impress her, since she already plans on staying close to him. Moments later, Lloyd begins concentrating on his breathing and carefully analyzes everything she explained. Almost immediately, a strange energy starts emerging from his body. The sight leaves Tao completely speechless. She quickly asks whether he somehow managed to use Ki already. Lloyd casually responds that he simply copied what he saw her doing. That answer only makes Tao even more nervous. She explains that attempting to use Ki without proper training can cause severe pain and serious side effects. Because of Lloyd's strong interest in learning, Tao eventually offers to teach him personally. Back at the palace, Green finds himself reflecting on Lloyd's unusual personality. Despite being born into luxury and privilege, the prince spends nearly all of his time studying magic instead of enjoying his royal lifestyle. His thoughts are abruptly interrupted when Silpa suddenly appears nearby. The unexpected encounter immediately sends Green into a panic. The story then returns to Lloyd and Tao, who eventually reach the deepest part of the dungeon and defeat its final boss. With the battle over, Tao assumes the treasure chest left behind will probably contain nothing special since the dungeon itself was considered low level. At the same time, she notices that Lloyd is becoming increasingly skilled at using Ki. Watching his rapid progress fills her with excitement because her feelings for him continue growing stronger. Tao convinces herself that if they continue spending time together as teacher and student, she will eventually win his heart. Soon afterward, the two approach the treasure chest and decide to open it. The moment the lid moves, an axe suddenly shoots out at incredible speed. Fortunately, Lloyd reacts instantly and manages to pull Tao out of danger before the weapon can hit her. Before either of them can relax, the ground begins shaking. A powerful monster emerges from below, revealing itself moments later. The sight immediately puts Tao on edge as she recognizes the creature as a lich. Realizing how dangerous the situation has become, she orders Lloyd to leave the area at once while she handles the fight herself. Lloyd, however, has no intention of leaving because he wants to observe the battle. Knowing she cannot convince him otherwise, Tao resorts to another solution. She traps him inside a barrier and forcefully sends him away from the battlefield before turning her attention toward the lich. The battle begins the moment the lich targets Tao. After exchanging a few attacks, she quickly realizes just how dangerous the creature truly is. This is no ordinary monster, but a high-level undead capable of overwhelming even experienced A-rank adventurer. That realization reminds her why she sent Lloyd away earlier. Her only goal was to give him enough time to escape before things became hopeless. Meanwhile, Lloyd is already flying away from the dungeon. However, after putting some distance between himself and the battlefield, he suddenly pauses and starts wondering whether leaving was really the right choice. Back at the dungeon, Tao's condition continues to worsen. Her injuries are piling up, and she gradually accepts the fact that she has no realistic way of defeating the lich. As the pressure mounts, fear begins creeping into her mind, and for the first time, she seriously considers the possibility of dying. Sensing her desperation, the lich suddenly starts speaking. He reveals that centuries ago he consumed another warrior who possessed abilities very similar to Tao's. Because of that experience, he already understands every aspect of her combat style and sees no reason to devour her as well. However, there is one person who has caught his attention. According to the Lich, Lloyd managed to dodge the axe hidden inside the treasure chest, something that should have been impossible for an ordinary person. Refusing to give up, Tao reignites her ki and launches herself toward the monster. In response, the Lich raises a magical barrier to stop her advance. Driven by frustration and determination, Tao smashes through the barrier and delivers what she believes to be a successful strike. Unfortunately, reality is far different. The excessive strain from using so much ki leaves her body unable to move. At the same time, the Lich suddenly appears behind her completely unharmed, proving that her attack never truly reached him. With victory already secured, the monster begins preparing a devastating finishing blow. Seeing no way out, Tao finally loses hope and resigns herself to her fate. Just as the attack is about to hit, Lloyd suddenly reappears. Without hesitation, he deploys a magical barrier that completely blocks the incoming spell and saves Tao's life. Having arrived at the perfect moment, Lloyd decides that it is finally time to enjoy himself. Combining his mana with the key techniques he recently learned, he creates a powerful wind-based attack that immediately catches the Lich off guard. The monster continues attacking, but Lloyd treats the battle as another opportunity to learn. Rather than focusing solely on winning, he constantly experiments with ki and refines his control during combat. His progress is so rapid that he soon develops an entirely new movement technique known as sprint, allowing him to travel from one location to another at incredible speed. As his understanding deepens, Lloyd eventually launches his own offensive using ki. The sight leaves the Lich stunned. Never before has he seen a mage incorporate martial arts techniques into battle so effectively. To make matters worse, every attack he throws is effortlessly redirected or deflected. Meanwhile, Lloyd appears to be having the time of his life. The more intense the fight becomes, the more excited he grows, repeatedly expressing how enjoyable the battle is. Eventually, the Lich realizes he cannot win and desperately hides behind a barrier in an attempt to survive. The effort proves meaningless. With a single strike, Lloyd slices straight through both the barrier and the monster, cutting the Lich in half. Once the battle is over, they finally open the treasure chest and discover that the source of all their trouble was nothing more than an ordinary-looking sword. Not long afterward, the dungeon begins collapsing. The treasure chest starts sinking into the ground while cracks spread across the ceiling above them. After safely escaping, Tao takes a moment to reflect on everything that happened. The experience leaves a deep impression on her, especially Lloyd's final attack. In her opinion, the technique he used to split the Lich in two is something she could never hope to replicate herself. Eventually, it is time for them to part ways. Before leaving, Tao vows that she will continue training and become much stronger so that one day she can finally earn Lloyd's attention. Sometime later, Lloyd returns to the royal palace. Upon arriving, he is greeted by a rather unfortunate sight. Green has been completely beaten up by Silpa. The two had apparently been sparring while Lloyd was away, but the demon stood no chance against her and suffered a brutal defeat. A short while later, Lloyd shows Green the blade he recovered from the dungeon. Green takes one look at it and immediately dismisses it as worthless. Lloyd, however, sees something far more interesting. He places the weapon into hot water and explains that the process will allow him to extract the mana catalyst hidden within the blade. According to Lloyd, mana catalysts are essential materials used to enchant weapons and enhance their performance. After carefully processing the blade, he successfully separates the catalyst from it. He then explains that refining the extracted essence further will make it easier to identify the ingredients originally used to create the enchantment. To continue the experiment, Lloyd casts a purification spell. As the impurities disappear, several distinct materials become visible. Both Lloyd and Green become excited by the discovery because they now have a much clearer understanding of how magical enchantments are made. Since Lloyd also brought back the treasure chest, which can be used as a core component, all he needs now are a few additional materials to continue his research. Later on, Lloyd visits King Charles with a simple request. Rather than asking for gold, he specifically asks his father for silver coins. Charles finds the request surprisingly modest because most people in Lloyd's position would have chosen gold without hesitation. Not long after receiving them, Lloyd and Green begin melting down the silver. Sometime later, Lloyd resumes his swordsmanship training with Silpa. During one exchange, he attempts to surprise her by combining swordplay with an earth spell. Even so, Silpa's superior experience allows her to claim victory once again. After the training session, Silpa brings Lloyd a container filled with oil. She becomes emotional and starts apologizing because she believes her skills have deteriorated. The reason for her concern is the beating she gave Green earlier while mistakenly believing that he was Lloyd. Meanwhile, Green secretly watches the conversation from outside through a nearby window. Even now, he still cannot comprehend how Silpa managed to defeat him so effortlessly. As Silpa looks at Lloyd, she begins reflecting on his remarkable growth. The thought excites her greatly because despite being only 10 years old, he already possesses extraordinary magical ability and impressive swordsmanship. In her eyes, Lloyd's future potential is limitless, and she believes he could eventually reach the level of a military commander or even higher. Afterward, Lloyd leaves to meet up with Green once again. The two mix the oil with the melted silver, as part of their ongoing effort to create a mana-S suitable for enchanting equipment. Sometime later, Lloyd visits Albert and asks whether he can borrow several weapons for testing enchantment. The response is immediate. Every knight present eagerly offers up their swords without a second thought. However, the knights only handed over their weapons because Lloyd was a prince, and refusing his request was not really an option. Green overhears the comments they were making about Lloyd. Shortly afterward, the two return to their workshop, where Green confidently declares that they are going to create the finest enchantments possible. Over the next several days, Lloyd dedicates himself to enchanting the swords. However, many of the weapons are unable to withstand the powerful enchantments he places on them. After several days of work, Lloyd finally returns to Albert and the knights to deliver the results. He apologizes because out of 120 swords, he was only able to enchant 50 successfully. At least, that is what he tells them. In reality, he believes the actual number is closer to 80, but some of the weapons ended up receiving far too many additional enchantments, so he decides it is better not to mention. Albert is absolutely delighted and realizes that Lloyd is far more talented than he originally thought. According to him, even expert enchanters only have a success rate of around 10%. Lloyd then says that he would like to test the enchanted weapon. Albert explains that their father has assigned them a mission to hunt monsters, making it the perfect opportunity. Several hours later, Lloyd, Albert, and a group of knights are traveling together in a carriage. Their destination is a forest where they have been ordered to eliminate the monsters their father mentioned. Lloyd is extremely happy because he rarely gets the chance to leave the castle. Silpa also thanks Albert for allowing her to accompany them. Albert teasingly asks Silpa whether her feelings for Lloyd go beyond those of a teacher. The question immediately annoys her. Before she can respond properly, she suddenly senses danger and warns everyone that enemies are surrounding them. Moments later, creatures known as kobolds wearing armor emerge from the forest. Lloyd quietly tells Green that he had already sensed the enemies approaching. One of the key techniques Tao taught him allows him to detect nearby enemies. Soon the knights charge into battle and effortlessly cut down the kobold. They are amazed by how sharp and powerful their swords have become. Feeling proud of his work, Lloyd casually points out that the weapons are his handiwork. Albert and Silpa are also impressed by Lloyd's talent, especially after seeing how much stronger he made the knight's weapon. Suddenly, one of the enemies leaps toward Lloyd. Before it can reach him, Tao appears with a flying kick and sends it flying away. She proudly explains that her instincts for handsome men led her there. Since enemies were nearby, she decided to come and help. Lloyd almost slips up because he nearly speaks to her as if he were still using the identity she met before. Tao then approaches Lloyd and comments that she sensed someone using key breathing techniques in the area. The reason she came is because she felt the presence of Lloyd's alternate identity. Silpa immediately tells Tao to show proper respect because Lloyd is the 7th Prince of Saloum. This quickly turns into a battle of pride between the two women. Albert tries to intervene and asks both of them to calm down and behave themselves. He then invites Tao to continue traveling with the group. Sometime later, the group arrives at a lake where the target creature is believed to be hiding. While Albert speaks with Tao, she notices how handsome he is and even thinks he resembles Lloyd's other identity. However, she dismisses the thought because she is certain she would recognize his presence if it were really him. Meanwhile, Lloyd is observing the area from a distance. Green warns him that openly using his key breathing technique could attract suspicion. Because of this, Lloyd decides to keep a low profile and retreats to his tent. Once inside, he is greeted by Silpa, who is completely naked while changing clothes. Lloyd is immediately annoyed that she is there. Silpa explains that she is his personal bodyguard and that all the other guards are assigned to protect Albert. She also casually announces that she will be sleeping in the same tent as him. After getting dressed, Lloyd attempts to leave. However, Silpa physically stops him from escaping. At that exact moment, Tao arrives and finds them in a very compromising position. Silpa immediately throws a dagger at Tao for spying on them. The two women then step outside and everyone notices that Silpa is wearing an extremely revealing outfit. The sight leaves many of the knights visibly flustered. While Tao and Silpa continue arguing, Lloyd quietly heads over to Albert. Albert teases him by calling him a ladies' man since every girl seems to be fighting over him. Meanwhile, Tao and Silpa notice several knights staring at them lustfully. The two women quickly teach them a painful lesson. Tao then explains that she was hired to help restore an ancient shrine. Silpa, acting extremely possessive, immediately tells her to leave. However, Albert steps in and points out that Tao's ability to detect enemies would be very useful. He asks her to remain with the group until sunrise. Just then, their conversation is interrupted by the appearance of a fierce, wolf-like monster. The knights immediately draw their weapon. Silpa quickly positions herself in front of Lloyd and tells him to stay behind her. The battle begins at once. Tao lands a solid hit on the beast. Albert then steps forward and casts a powerful fire spell. The attack destroys the creature in a single blow. Everyone celebrates the victory, but Albert makes sure to give credit where it is due. He explains that the true reason he was able to unleash such power is because Lloyd's enchantments greatly enhanced his sword. Meanwhile, Green keeps staring at the shrine that Tao came to inspect. He tells Lloyd that the place seems familiar and that he remembers an ancient demon being sealed there. Their conversation is interrupted when the wolf-like beast suddenly rises again. This time, it is accompanied by several other creatures. A voice then echoes from within the monster, and a demon introduces himself as Pazuzu. He is furious that they killed the beast. Soon, the other creatures begin attacking the knights. Even after being defeated, the monsters continue regenerating. Lloyd asks Green whether this is the demon that was sealed inside the shrine. Green confirms that it is, but he also senses that something has mutated within its mana. He explains that the beasts are controlled through magical threads created by the demon. Those same threads are also responsible for their regeneration. As long as Pazuzu remains alive, the beasts will continue recovering no matter how many times they are defeated. Because Lloyd is always eager to learn new forms of magic, he asks Green to teach him how to transmute mana. At the same time, Pazuzu begins insulting Lloyd and repeatedly calls him a crybaby. Hearing that instantly enrages Silpa. A massive aura erupts around her as she draws her sword and prepares to kill him. Silpa tells the demon to stop talking and start fighting. The moment one of the beasts leaps toward her, she effortlessly cuts off all 4 of its legs. The creature immediately starts regenerating. However, the group realizes that whenever Pazuzu focuses on regenerating one beast, the others regenerate much more slowly. Meanwhile, Green teaches Lloyd how to transmute mana. The process requires shaping mana into a specific form using the hands. After watching Lloyd do it successfully, Green is completely shocked because even demons struggle to master such a technique. Back on the battlefield, Silpa is relentlessly beating down the demon's forces. She then borrows Albert's sword and continues her assault. Pazuzu is stunned that a mere maid possesses such overwhelming strength. Suddenly, one of the beasts circles around her and attacks from behind, biting her. The demon assumes he has finally won. However, moments later, Silpa slices the beast in half from inside its mouth using her sword. She bursts out of the creature's body and immediately decapitates it. Pazuzu is absolutely furious that a simple human woman is defeating him so thoroughly. Silpa then unleashes a relentless combo of attacks. The barrage forces Pazuzu to abandon the beast's body and reveal his true form. The demon crashes onto the ground. Silpa coldly tells him that he deserves to die for insulting her Lloyd. Moments later, Pazuzu suddenly starts laughing. Even after watching his beasts get defeated, he finds the situation amusing. He explains that he spent decades training those creatures only for them to be defeated so easily. Immediately afterward, a strange miasma begins spreading across the battlefield. Everyone present suddenly feels extremely weak. Taking advantage of the situation, Pazuzu lands a powerful blow on Silpa and sends her flying. Just as he is about to finish her off, Tao appears and blocks the attack. However, the miasma is affecting Silpa too severely, causing her to collapse to the ground. Pazuzu then moves behind Tao and attempts a surprise attack. Tao reacts instantly and lands a strike on him. The demon grabs her, but quickly notices something unusual. The miasma is not affecting her because of the key breathing technique. Cornered but determined, Tao unleashes a powerful attack that forces Pazuzu to release her. Unfortunately, the demon's beasts have already regenerated and managed to capture her. Even while being affected by the miasma, Tao confidently declares that the handsome boy she admires, referring to Lloyd, will defeat him. Pazuzu then notices that the miasma is having absolutely no effect on Lloyd. The realization makes him extremely nervous. He cannot understand why Lloyd remains completely unaffected. The demon then turns his attention toward Green and mocks him for serving a human. He calls Green a pathetic demon who has submitted to someone far beneath him. At first, Green is about to warn him not to fight Lloyd. However, after hearing all those insults, he decides that it would be better for Pazuzu to learn the hard way. Moments later, Pazuzu sends all of his beasts after Lloyd. Lloyd calmly uses his mana transmutation technique. As soon as he activates it, every beast immediately returns to normal. The creatures are no longer corrupted monsters and instead become harmless and adorable animals. Lloyd then asks one of the beasts to spit Tao out because it had literally swallowed her. The beasts immediately turn against Pazuzu. After all, they had been controlled by him and forced to kill their own father. Pazuzu becomes enraged and brutally attacks the poor creature. His anger continues growing as he declares that Lloyd will pay dearly for ruining all of his plans. Pazuzu begins gathering a massive amount of dark energy. Instead of being worried, Lloyd becomes excited. Even though demons cannot normally be killed with magic, he decides to test as many spells as possible in an attempt to find one that can defeat a demon. With that in mind, Lloyd releases the mana he had been concealing. The moment Pazuzu witnesses the overwhelming amount of mana surrounding Lloyd, he becomes completely terrified. Green casually reminds him that he had already warned him about Lloyd. Overcome by fear, Pazuzu immediately turns around and starts running away. However, Lloyd begins trapping him inside layers of magical barriers, preventing any chance of escape. At that moment, Pazuzu realizes that if Lloyd manages to trap him, he will be in serious trouble. After several failed attempts to capture him, Lloyd asks Green for help. After absorbing Green, Lloyd casts a spell called Dimensional Barrier, creating a massive barrier that successfully traps the demon. Pazuzu is completely terrified by Lloyd's power and immediately begs to talk, fearing that he is about to die. Lloyd then begins gathering countless spells around the demon and casually states that he is going to bombard him with 240 spells per minute. After enduring hundreds of spells for nearly 5 minutes, Pazuzu is left in critical condition. At the same time, Lloyd notices that everyone around them is beginning to regain consciousness. Realizing that he will need an explanation for what happened, he starts thinking of an excuse. Meanwhile, Green remains with the dying demon. Pazuzu slowly begins to disintegrate. Green tells him that defeating Lloyd is impossible right now, but that he should continue gathering strength if he still hopes to accomplish that goal someday. With his final words, Pazuzu asks Green to fulfill their shared ambition of conquering the world. Moments later, the demon vanishes completely. Afterward, Lloyd tells everyone that a boy named Robert was the one who defeated the demon. Of course, when he refers to Robert, he is actually talking about the clone identity that Tao had previously met. The following day, the group returns to the castle and is congratulated by King Charles. The king also asks about Tao and Robert. Albert explains that Robert disappeared shortly before everyone regained consciousness. He also mentions that Lloyd played a prank on Tao, causing her to chase after Robert. Despite that, Albert gives most of the credit to Lloyd. He explains that the battle was won largely because of the enchantments Lloyd placed on their weapons. The enchanted swords greatly improved their combat abilities, leading Albert to recommend that Lloyd join future battle group. Albert even says that he would not mind if Lloyd eventually inherited the throne. After all, Albert is currently the leading candidate to become the next king. However, Lloyd is still just a child who wants to enjoy himself, so he immediately rejects the suggestion. Sometime later, one of the wolf beasts that had attacked them earlier follows Lloyd back to the castle. After Lloyd purified the creatures with his mana, one of them became completely tame and began following him like a loyal pet. Soon afterward, Silpa arrives. Lloyd tells her that he has decided to name the wolf Shiro. While the two are talking, Green thinks Lloyd is an idiot because he only cares about magic and willingly rejected the chance to become king. A little later, Lloyd spends time teaching Shiro various tricks. However, he explains to Silpa that Shiro only understands simple commands. The two then remember that there is someone in the royal family who is an expert when it comes to animals. The scene shifts to Princess Alice's garden tower. It quickly becomes clear that Alice absolutely loves animals because the entire area is filled with them. The princess immediately runs toward Lloyd and jumps on him. To his complete surprise, she kisses him without any hesitation. The unexpected kiss causes Lloyd to faint on the spot. One of the maids comments that Alice seems completely accustomed to doing things like that. A little later, Alice begins interacting with Shiro while talking with Silpa. Lloyd assumes that she probably has no special experience with animals. However, Alice quickly proves him wrong. She summons a lesser Fenrir named Liru. The beast is carrying the hair ornament that Silpa had been wearing. Without anyone noticing, Liru had secretly stolen it while they were talking. After witnessing this level of communication, Lloyd says that he wants to build the same bond with Shiro. Alice confidently explains that everything comes from the power of love. Hearing that, Lloyd begins concentrating. Moments later, he creates an atmosphere overflowing with affection, causing all of Alice's animals to rush toward him. Lloyd then hugs Silpa and points out that she always shows him a great deal of affection. Because of that, he asks her to teach him more about love. Later, Lloyd continues thinking about how Alice is able to command her Fenrir without speaking a single word. Then he remembers that when she called her Fenrir earlier, he sensed a small amount of mana flowing through her mind. This leads him to an important conclusion. Alice is using magic to send images directly into the minds of her beasts. Lloyd immediately attempts to replicate the technique with Shiro. The experiment works exactly as he expected. Shiro follows his instructions without Lloyd saying a single word. Unfortunately, this discovery greatly annoys Alice because she insists that the secret is love, not magic. Afterward, everyone once again becomes captivated by how adorable Lloyd is. Sometime later, Lloyd and Silpa leave the garden. Their walk is interrupted when Albert arrives. He asks to borrow Lloyd for a while. However, Silpa objects because she wants to continue training him. Before the argument can continue, they are interrupted by Diane, the fourth prince of the royal family. Soon afterward, the group heads to the royal forge. Diane explains that he wanted to see with his own eyes how Lloyd managed to enchant Albert's sword. Albert then introduces Lloyd to a blacksmith. He explains that when the blacksmith was 10 years old, he traveled to the neighboring nation of Bertrand, a country famous for its expertise in smithing. Lloyd's brothers begin praising him for his achievement. However, the blacksmith becomes irritated because all he really wants is to see Lloyd's abilities for himself. After handing Lloyd a sword, he watches as the young prince begins enchanting it. Not long afterward, the blacksmith is completely stunned by the number of enchantments Lloyd successfully places on the weapon. The sight excites him tremendously. He tells Lloyd that with his help, he can finally achieve his lifelong dream of forging the ultimate magical sword. By combining his blacksmithing talent with Lloyd's magical abilities, they could create an incredibly powerful weapon. Lloyd is pleased by the idea and is happy to be part of the production process. Several hours later, the two begin creating weapons together. Diane requests a sword capable of launching fire attack. Lloyd already knows which enchantments are needed, but the enchantments are so powerful that they end up destroying the pure steel. Green then suggests purifying the mana essence to determine its quality. After examining it, they discover that the essence is of very poor quality. As a result, they realize they will need monster cores to improve it. Lloyd immediately thinks about visiting a dungeon to hunt the necessary monster. At that moment, Silpa informs him that she has already spoken with King Charles and obtained permission for him to enter a dungeon. Thanks to Lloyd's impressive performance during the previous mission, the king approved the request. The following day, Lloyd and Silpa head to the Adventurers Guild so that Lloyd can officially register. They are greeted by a woman named Katarina. After collecting his information, she asks Lloyd to place his hand on a crystal ball so it can analyze his abilities. Since he does not want to attract attention, Lloyd compresses his mana as much as possible. After examining the results, Katarina estimates that his overall physical abilities are roughly equivalent to those of an E-rank adventurer. One of the adventurers nearby immediately starts laughing. However, Katarina quickly points out that Lloyd's magical ability is comparable to that of an A-rank mage. Hearing this actually disappoints Lloyd because it means he failed to suppress his magic. Katarina then compares him to a legendary woman known as the Silver Sword. She explains that Lloyd has the potential to become one of the most powerful mages in history. According to the legend, the Silver Sword conquered hundreds of dungeons during her lifetime. The adventurers present become annoyed after hearing the comparison because they cannot believe someone is comparing a child to such a legendary figure. Silpa then asks Katarina for a quest. However, Katarina refuses because the mission requires at least a B-rank adventurer. In response, Silpa says she would like to register again. One of the adventurers starts provoking her. Without warning, Silpa slices off his mustache with a single sword strike. Katarina then reveals that Silpa is actually the legendary Silver Sword herself. However, because she left the Adventurers Guild years ago, her rank was reduced back down to C rank. As expected, Tao suddenly appears and announces that she is now an A-rank adventurer and can help them. She explains that while searching for Robert, she completed enough achievements to earn the promotion. While looking through the quest board, Lloyd comments that he never realized Silpa was so amazing. Silpa responds by saying that there is still one person she could never defeat. According to her, they belong to an organization known as the Assassin Guild, a group made up of extremely dangerous individuals. Over the following days, the group explores several dungeons in search of monster cores. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Albert and Diane. Albert informs his brother that a war may soon break out within the kingdom. Although the situation worries them, they believe that Lloyd's abilities will allow them to forge incredibly powerful weapons for the coming conflict. At that moment, the group returns with the materials they collected. The rest of the day is spent forging a sword using the combined talents of Lloyd and the blacksmith. The following day, Diane finally tests the completed weapon. The sword proves to be extraordinarily powerful. Seeing the result motivates Lloyd to make the next weapon even stronger. Later that night, Lloyd lies in bed reflecting on everything he accomplished that day. Suddenly, he uses a detection spell and senses a powerful presence within the garden. When he looks out the window, he notices a hooded figure watching him. Lloyd immediately heads outside and casts a spell that traps both of them inside a barrier. The mysterious figure then removes her hood and introduces herself as Ren, also known as the Poison Moth. While they are talking, Ren secretly releases poisonous spores into the air. The poison manages to affect Lloyd slightly. However, because of his immense power, he immediately casts purification and removes every trace of the toxin from his body. Ren then claims that she has no intention of fighting. To prove her point, she casually destroys Lloyd's magical barrier with a single kick. After doing so, she turns around and leaves. Rather than being upset, Lloyd becomes fascinated. Ren's poison is a form of magic he has never encountered before. A moment later, Green appears and asks whether he is alright. Lloyd explains that he used Holy Breath to heal the effects of the poison. Green asks why he allowed Ren to escape when he clearly could have stopped her. Lloyd calmly reveals that he let her go on purpose so she could unknowingly lead him back to her hideout. Lloyd immediately suspects that Ren is a member of the assassin that Silpa mentioned earlier. Green is shocked because Ren is almost impossible to detect, which only confirms Lloyd's suspicion. He explains that she uses a unique space-time ability to completely conceal her presence. After realizing this, Lloyd begins following her. Sometime later, Ren arrives at a hideout where several people are gathered. There, Lloyd meets a man named Galilea and a pink-haired girl named Talia. Ren informs them that the kingdom has begun producing enchanted weapons. However, the group suddenly detects Lloyd's presence. Lloyd casually drops down from his hiding spot. One of the members comments that despite how adorable he looks, his power is absurdly overwhelming. Galilea then tells Lloyd that now that he has discovered the Assassin Guild, they cannot allow him to leave. Lloyd immediately deactivates his magical barrier. At that moment, a man named Babylon rushes forward to attack him. However, after seeing Lloyd's movements, Babylon is completely shocked. The martial arts techniques Lloyd learned from Dao make him a far more dangerous fighter than he appears. After exchanging several blows, Babylon explains that he was born with extraordinary flexibility, allowing him to twist his body and fit into almost any space. While Lloyd is briefly distracted, a masked assassin named Crow suddenly appears behind him. Crow casts a curse on Lloyd, causing his body to become much heavier. Galilea explains that Crow's unique ability is a curse that causes whatever he says to become reality. That is why Crow rarely speaks. Just before Crow can finish him off, Lloyd activates a spell and removes the curse entirely. However, he is immediately trapped inside a giant web. Galilea then reveals that his own unique ability allows him to transform mana into an extremely sticky substance. Lloyd quickly breaks free from the web. Unfortunately, Talia immediately captures. She explains that she can transfer any pain she inflicts upon herself to another person. After several exchanges, the assassins begin mocking Lloyd, believing that he is afraid of them. However, Lloyd instantly heals the wound Talia inflicted on him. The sight leaves her completely stunned. Rather than being upset, Lloyd becomes excited and starts asking questions about her ability. He wonders whether she can only transfer her own pain or if she can also transfer pain caused by others. Lloyd then suggests that there is only one way to find out. Moments later, he summons the same sacred swords used by Silpa and decides to test the ability himself. Galilea immediately becomes nervous. He comments that Lloyd reminds him of the legendary Silver Sword. The book is in the episode of the story Begin, the decade of 2390, and its piece of letter is appended in the episode of 10. Famous afternoon, life has come together. The book is in the center, and you will be when the medium of tentacles standing out from every one day. At that moment, Lloyd finally starts taking the battle seriously. The entire group becomes terrified as they begin wondering who this child really is. Lloyd then attacks them one by one. Before long, every assassin is completely defeated and thoroughly humiliated. While fighting Talia, Lloyd discovers that whenever he injures her, he also suffers the same damage because of her ability. Eventually, Lloyd reaches Ren, the last person still standing. He tells her to attack him with everything she has. However, Galilea quickly asks him not to force Ren into a fight. He explains that she still cannot properly control her poisonous spores. Lloyd agrees and realizes that none of them truly have control over their unique powers. Galilea then reveals the truth. The reason they became members of the Assassin Guild is because they were all treated as criminals due to their uncontrollable abilities. Hearing this, Lloyd begins to feel sorry for them. Just then, Galilea suddenly lunges forward in an attempt to restrain him. Lloyd effortlessly dodges and places a mark on Galilea's back. Ren immediately becomes angry. However, Galilea tells her to calm down. The mark Lloyd placed on him has somehow stabilized his unique ability and allowed him to control it properly for the first time in his life. Lloyd explains that the process is very similar to enchanting swords. The only difference is that he had never tried placing magical formulas directly onto a person's body before. At that moment, Galilea bursts into tears of happiness. For the first time ever, he can fully control his mana. Being the kind person he is, Lloyd tells the others to come closer so he can do the same for them. Not long afterward, he places marks on every member of the group. Now that they can finally control their powers, they are overjoyed. The only exception is Ren, who does not seem particularly pleased. It appears that the rest of the group has practically decided to adopt Lloyd as one of their own. The others explain that they owe everything to him because he freed them from the curses that had controlled their lives. As a form of repayment, Galilea offers to tell Lloyd everything about how the Assassin Guild was formed and reveal the identity of their leader. He begins explaining the story of a man known as the Phantom Scourge. However, just as he starts talking about him, the man suddenly appears. His name is Jade. Galilea explains that Jade possesses the worst curse of all. His curse forces him to randomly teleport to different locations against his will. Afterward, Jade announces that from now on, they will take on the dirty jobs that no ordinary adventurer wants to handle. Whenever they complete a mission, they will leave behind a coin marked with the symbol of the Assassin Guild. According to Jade, this is how they will become recognized for bringing peace to the world. However, the moment he finishes saying that, he is teleported away once again. A little later, the group sits down to eat. Suddenly, a letter marked with the symbol of the Assassin Guild appears before them. Sometime later, Silpa arrives with Shiro and discovers a note left behind by Loido. The note explains that he has gone to visit a man named Lordos together with the assassin. Silpa immediately takes the letter to Albert. Everyone becomes extremely nervous after reading it because the situation involving Lordos is far from stable. Some of them even suspect that Lordos may have allied with the Assassin Guild and kidnapped Lloyd. Diane quickly points out that Lloyd is not someone who could be kidnapped easily. However, Silpa then presents the clothes Lloyd had been wearing, which she found at the scene. This immediately enrages Albert. He declares that this means war because he believes someone stripped Lloyd of his clothes. The scene then shifts back to Lloyd and the Assassin Guild. They receive a message from Jade stating that he has successfully defeated the rulers of Lordos, who had been preparing to start a war. Because he eliminated them, he has now taken control of the territory and invites everyone to attend a banquet. The guild members immediately ask Lloyd to take them there. However, Lloyd points out something important regarding Jade's curse. He explains that teleportation is an extremely difficult ability to understand and control. In other words, if Jade truly could not control his curse, there is no way he would have been able to send them that letter. This causes the group to become suspicious. After discussing the matter for a while, Lloyd agrees to accompany them because his love for magic makes him very interested in learning more about teleportation. At the same time, Ren begins to distrust Jade. Lloyd reassures her and confidently states that if Jade is plotting something, he will personally deal with it. Those words cause Ren to blush and become even more attracted to Lloyd. A short time later, Lloyd casts a spell that allows the entire group to fly alongside him. Unfortunately, none of them are used to flying, so they eventually stop to rest. Ren volunteers to gather food from the forest. While she is gone, the others explain her past to Lloyd. They reveal that Jade was the one who saved Ren. When she was a child, her poisonous spores accidentally killed her parents. After that tragedy, Jade rescued her and brought her into the group along with everyone else. They also created an enchanted robe for her that helped control the poisonous spores she constantly released. Sometime later, Ren returns and prepares a stew. The others are hesitant to eat it. However, Lloyd had eaten far worse things during his previous life, so he has no problem trying it. After tasting it, he admits that despite its appearance, it is actually quite delicious. The story then reveals a memory from the group's past. In that flashback, Jade confesses that he is the third son of the Lordos family, making him a noble. He also admits that he initially used the group for his own purpose. His family controlled the kingdom of Lordos and constantly sought to start wars. Jade wanted to become someone different and experience genuine friendship. However, he never expected the group to accept him so warmly and treat him like family. The others immediately tell him that he is already one of them. At that moment, Jade reveals that he intends to eliminate every corrupt member of his family and put an end to the endless wars. He promises that if he ever returns, it will be as the governor of those lands. His goal is to create a far friendlier nation where all of them can live together peacefully. Several hours later, Lloyd falls asleep while resting against Galilea's shoulder. Eventually, the group arrives at Lordos Castle. Ren suggests leaving Lloyd outside the castle just in case Jade has been manipulated by his family or is planning something suspicious. Everyone agrees with the idea. As a result, Lloyd is left sleeping outside on the ground. Meanwhile, the rest of the group sneaks inside to observe the banquet that was supposedly being held to welcome them. However, they are quickly discovered by one of the people inside. Soon, they enter the banquet hall and prepare something to eat. Moments later, Jade finally appears. The group is overjoyed to see him and immediately notices that he can now control his teleportation ability. Ren even begins crying from happiness because she missed him so much and sees him as a little brother. However, something feels wrong. For an unknown reason, Jade now possesses the same curse that Crow once had. After ordering everyone to kneel, a tremendous pressure suddenly crashes down on the group and forces them to the ground. At the same time, it becomes apparent that all of the banquet guests are actually spirits. Jade explains that he can possess any of them whenever he wants. Green immediately launches an attack. However, Jade effortlessly dodges it. He then kicks Green away, sending him flying directly toward Lloyd. Green tearfully explains that the entire group is in serious danger. Back inside the banquet hall, Jade reveals the truth. He explains that all of the people present are demons brought directly from the underworld. He then confesses that he himself came from the underworld as well. According to him, he took possession of the real Jade's body. He introduces himself as Wisarn, the demon of catastrophe from the underworld. Wisarn further reveals that the real Jade is already dead. The main reason he chose Jade's body was because of his extraordinary teleportation ability. Afterward, Wisarn reveals that for many months he psychologically tormented Jade. He deliberately pushed Jade into emotional despair by constantly exploiting his concern for his friends. Hearing this causes the entire group to break down in tears as they realize how much suffering their friend endured. The demon then turns his attention to Ren. He cruelly reminds her that she killed her own parents and tells her that she will eventually betray her friends as well. The group is completely helpless because none of them can move under the effects of Wisarn's ability. However, everything changes in an instant. A powerful protective barrier suddenly surrounds them. Moments later, a massive bolt of lightning crashes down from the sky. The attack shields the group while creating an enormous crater in the area. It is then revealed that Lloyd was the one who cast the spell. The explosion is so powerful that it kills many of the demons immediately, while the survivors become terrified of Lloyd's overwhelming power. Ren begins crying when she sees that Lloyd arrived just in time. Lloyd gently calms her by holding her cheeks and healing her injury. He then tells the group to leave because they are the demon's primary target. Galilea immediately grabs Ren and starts leading everyone away. Seeing this, Wisarn orders the remaining demons to chase after them. He points out that assassins are experts at hiding and escaping. However, Lloyd refuses to let that happen. He instantly attacks the demons with a powerful lightning. Lloyd then stays behind to confront Wisarn alone. The demon quickly launches a devastating attack that actually pierces Lloyd's barrier. Lloyd barely manages to dodge it. The attack ends up striking another demon instead. To Lloyd's surprise, the demon dies instantly after being hit. Curious, Lloyd begins analyzing the spell and wondering what type of magic Wisarn is using. Green then explains that demons are divided into different classes. He reveals that he himself belongs to Class 13. Wisarn, however, stands above even Class 1. In other words, he is a member of the royal family of the underworld. Lloyd dismisses him as just another piece of trash and begins walking directly toward him. At the same time, both of them become excited to discover which one is stronger. Green desperately tells Lloyd to run away. According to him, Wisarn is far beyond Lloyd's level. Despite the warning, Lloyd remains completely confident and insists that defeating the demon will be easy. Wisarn immediately launches a barrage of mana needles that slam into Lloyd's barrier. After realizing how durable the barrier is, he summons countless magical blades that begin pursuing Lloyd. Lloyd successfully dodges several of them. Suddenly, Wisarn appears directly in front of him and delivers a powerful kick that sends him flying toward the blades. However, Lloyd reacts instantly and summons a gigantic golem that blocks the attack. Wisarn is stunned to see that Lloyd remains completely unharmed. He admits that the boy is incredibly talented because his attacks have barely managed to put him under pressure. The demon then begins summoning countless magical spears. Soon, the spears start striking Lloyd's body from every direction. Meanwhile, the remaining demons continue chasing the assassin. The group manages to reach a large gate and open it. However, there are simply too many enemies. Galilea and Talia decide to stay behind and hold the demons off while the others escape. At the same time, Talia begins using her ability by inflicting injuries upon herself so the damage will be transferred to her enemies. Then she suddenly places her sword against her own neck and announces that she is about to use her special technique. It becomes clear that she intends to decapitate herself in order to destroy all the demons at once. Ren immediately bursts into tears and desperately begs her not to do it. She reminds Talia that the kingdom no longer considers them criminals. She wants all of them to return home together and finally live happily. Just then, Talia appears to notice something unexpected. Back on the battlefield, Wisarn believes that he has finally killed Lloyd. However, Lloyd suddenly reappears and launches another attack. Wisarn barely manages to dodge it. Only then does he realize that the body he destroyed was nothing more than a clay demon. In another part of the battlefield, Talia is still alive. Suddenly, the demons are bombarded by a storm of fire spells. Moments later, reinforcements arrive. The newcomers are Lloyd's brothers, Silpa, and an entire army of knights. They arrive highly motivated and fully determined to wipe out every demon. The story then briefly shows a memory of Silpa training with her sword. During her training, she realizes that if she truly wants to defeat powerful demons, she will need a much stronger weapon. Whenever she combines her strength with the enchantments created by Lloyd, her current sword bends upon impact. And if it struggles against training dummies, it certainly will not withstand battles against powerful demons. Soon afterward, Silpa notices that the people she encountered are members of the Assassin Guild. She immediately threatens them, declaring that she will cut off their heads unless they tell her where Lloyd is. She also claims that she already knows all of their plans. Silpa immediately demands to know where Lloyd is. Ren almost blurts out that Lloyd is currently fighting the demon. However, Babylon quickly stops her. A few days earlier, Lloyd had specifically asked them not to tell anyone from the castle how powerful he really was. All Lloyd wanted was to continue studying magic without attracting more attention or having people realize how strong he had become. Because of that, the group nervously explains that Lloyd is simply fighting some loser and adds that he is a very kind and pleasant person. This response causes Silpa to lose her patience. She declares that Ren will be the first one to die. Before she can do anything, Albert steps in and tells her that an adult should die first. He then pulls out Lloyd's underwear, which Silpa had found in their hideout, and demands an explanation. Unfortunately, Galilea is terrible at explaining things. He says that he washed Lloyd's clothes because they were covered in his fluids, referring to his sticky web fluid. Naturally, both Albert and Silpa immediately assume the worst. Ren quickly interrupts and explains that although they may not believe them, they are genuinely worried about Lloyd as well. At that moment, a demon approaches the group. However, it is instantly devoured by Princess Alice's Fenrir. Alice tells everyone to trust Ren's words. According to her, if Ren were lying, her Fenrir would have already eaten her. The conversation is interrupted when a powerful attack crashes into the bridge. The impact sends a demon falling into the river below, where it begins swimming toward them. It is then revealed that Wisarn launched the attack. His goal was to separate the groups so he could fight Lloyd without interference. Taking advantage of Lloyd's brief distraction, Wisarn launches several dark blades. However, Lloyd easily dodges every attack. Meanwhile, Albert and the others continue bombarding the demons with fire spells. The attacks damage them slightly, but the demons continue regenerating. Albert begins to worry because the knights are rapidly running out of mana. He realizes that Silpa will eventually need to help them. However, Silpa is currently focused on finding a way to cross the destroyed bridge. Shiro can no longer tolerate being separated from Lloyd. Without hesitation, the wolf leaps into the river. Silpa prepares to follow. Before she can jump, a confident demon suddenly appears before her. He introduces himself as a Class 8 demon. The demon proudly claims to practice the supreme arts of the underworld. He then draws a weapon that he calls the demonic sword. Elsewhere, Albert continues searching for a way to defeat the demons. Suddenly, one of them attacks from behind. Fortunately, Babylon arrives in time to save him. Babylon apologizes for the many things the Assassin Guild did in the past that damaged the kingdom's image. He then explains that there is no way to save the people possessed by the demon. The bodies are nothing more than empty shells carrying demonic souls. Babylon also reminds Albert that they lost Jade in exactly the same way. At that moment, Albert realizes that defeating the demons will not simply be a battle. It will also be an act of vengeance for everyone who suffered because of them. With renewed determination, Albert begins charging a powerful spell. Soon, Massive meteors begin raining down upon the demons. Albert orders everyone not to hesitate. Destroying the demons will be their way of avenging the fallen. Meanwhile, Silpa continues her battle against the Class 8 demon. The fight is evenly matched. After exchanging several attacks, both fighters end up wounded. The demon becomes impressed by Silpa's strength and decides that her body would make an excellent vessel. He openly tells her that he intends to take her body for himself. Silpa shows absolutely no interest in his words. The demon then charges a powerful attack. Silpa effortlessly dodges it. While fighting, the demon reveals that the original owner of his body was one of Lordos's greatest warriors. He goes on to mock the man, claiming that his life outside of combat was pathetic. Those insults immediately anger Silpa. She leaps forward and suddenly manifests a demonic sword technique. The demon manages to block the strike. However, he is horrified to discover that Silpa can use a demonic technique. Silpa calmly explains that she learned it simply by watching him use it. At that moment, Shiro arrives. Silpa reaches into the wolf's fur and pulls out a mystical sword. A flashback then reveals the moment Lloyd and Diane presented that sword to her. The weapon was given as a gift of gratitude. Lloyd explained that he specifically designed it to be incredibly durable. In simple terms, Silpa would finally be able to unleash her full power without worrying about breaking her weapon. When she asked what enchantments he had placed on it, Lloyd explained that he always noticed her holding back during training because she was afraid of destroying her swords. That was why he focused entirely on durability and resistance. The explanation deeply moved Silpa. She hugged Lloyd and thanked him because she realized he had always been paying attention to her training. Since then, she has treasured the sword more than anything else. While thinking about it, she considers various names for the weapon. Eventually, she settles on a single name: Demon Slayer. Back in the present, the demon laughs at the name. He confidently claims that the sword will never kill anyone. The demon then reveals that he was the one responsible for killing every member of the Lordos family. His goal was to provoke Jade and lure him directly into his trap. In other words, he openly admits that Jade was possessed by Wisarn because of his action. Hearing this instantly enrages Ren, and she rushes toward the demon. However, Silpa immediately stops her. Silpa calmly tells her not to worry because she will be the one to defeat him. At that moment, the demon declares that he is about to use his strongest demonic technique. He charges straight at Silpa. In response, Silpa unleashes a powerful attack that strikes him directly. The story then briefly shifts to a flashback showing the moment Wisarn took over Jade's body. After possessing him, Wisarn discovered that Jade's greatest fear was starting a war. That realization became the very reason he decided to create one. Back in the present, Silpa successfully kills the demon. She comments that she would have liked to fight the original owner of that body before the possession because he seemed like a truly skilled swordsman. Suddenly, a massive explosion of steam interrupts everything. At the center of it, Lloyd is seen maintaining a magical barrier. He explains that attacking recklessly was unnecessary because nobody can see anything through all the steam. The story then jumps back to the moment Lloyd was avoiding Wisarn's attacks. Lloyd realized that the demon was fighting intelligently. Wisarn never stopped attacking because he hoped Lloyd would eventually exhaust himself. Because of that, Lloyd decided to counter with an enormous fire spell that evaporated all the water in the area. Afterward, he uses his detection magic to locate the demon. However, after standing still for several moments, Lloyd notices something strange. Wisarn does not attack him. After analyzing the situation, Lloyd realizes that because Wisarn took over Jade's body, he has inherited the stealth skills of an assassin. Lloyd eventually concludes that Wisarn's teleportation ability only allows him to move to places he can actually see. Soon, Lloyd spots him moving across the ground. Everything turns out exactly as Lloyd predicted. Meanwhile, Wisarn decides to wait for the steam to clear before launching another attack. Lloyd knows he cannot waste the opportunity. He immediately creates numerous earth clones. The clones rush toward the demon. One of them even charges forward carrying Lloyd's real sword. Wisarn believes he has identified the original Lloyd. He launches his magical spears and destroys one of the targets. Confident in his victory, Wisarn assumes he has defeated Lloyd with ease. However, he quickly realizes that the one he destroyed was only a clone. The demon then discovers that he has been completely surrounded by dozens of copies. He assumes that the real Lloyd must be watching from above. Instead, Lloyd suddenly strikes him from right beside him. At that point, it becomes clear that Lloyd has essentially turned the battle into a game of hide and seek. The real Lloyd has been hiding among the clones the entire time. He believes victory is close because he already has a plan. Meanwhile, Wisarn has no idea which one is the real Lloyd. Unable to determine the original, he summons countless magical swords and sends them after every clone. Eventually, one of the clones activates a magical barrier. Wisarn immediately assumes he has finally found the real Lloyd, because he expected Lloyd to protect himself when threatened. However, he is shocked when that clone also turns out to be fake. He finally realizes that Lloyd can give his clones barriers identical to the ones he himself. Rather than becoming frustrated, Weisarn actually starts enjoying the challenge. The battle has become far more exciting than he expected. At the same time, Lloyd activates the invisibility spell he originally used to enter the Forbidden Library. Hidden from sight, he quietly carries a powerful sword in his hands. A flashback then reveals the moment Lloyd and Green forged that weapon. Lloyd explained that the sword was heavily enchanted and possessed the ability to absorb spells. Any magic directed at the sword could be absorbed and converted into mana. The absorbed mana could then be used to strengthen the wielder. The sword could even analyze enemy spells and generate counters against them. Back in the present, Lloyd attempts to master a power that even Jade himself could never fully control. The ability is known as Shadow Wolf. Green immediately begs him to stop because trying to learn such a technique during battle is extremely dangerous. Green is terrified because despite Lloyd's overwhelming strength, he is completely obsessed with magic. Moments later, Lloyd successfully masters the technique. His consciousness is transported into another dimension. Inside that strange space, he begins searching for Jade, hoping that some part of him may still be alive. Lloyd admits that he would have liked the chance to meet the real Jade someday. Unfortunately, he finds nothing. Returning to reality, Lloyd dismisses all of the clones and appears directly in front of Weisarn. With a disappointed expression, Lloyd tells the demon that he finally understands everything. He is referring to the fact that nothing remains of Jade inside the body anymore. At that moment, Weisarn realizes that Lloyd is different from everyone else around him. Seeing that, the demon decides to make him an offer. Weisarn invites Lloyd to join his side. The protagonist calmly responds that a lion never questions why it was born with fangs and claws. He is referring to the fact that some beings are simply born with overwhelming strength and power. According to Lloyd, Weisarn was simply born powerful. Humans, on the other hand, have dreams, goals, and ambitions that constantly push them to improve themselves. Weisarn says that he neither understands nor cares about such things and declares that he will kill Lloyd. The moment the demon teleports, Lloyd moves at superhuman speed and lands a powerful punch directly into his stomach. Lloyd explains that he used the key techniques Tao taught him and enhanced his lungs with mana to improve his physical abilities. The demon is shocked by how calm Lloyd remains. Enraged, Weisarn prepares to continue fighting. Meanwhile, Lloyd casually sits down and points out that Weisarn's mana spears are nothing more than an improved version of Crow's attack. The comment infuriates the demon. He insists that Lloyd should not act so confident just because he managed to land a lucky hit on the Demon King. At that moment, an important detail is revealed. Weisarn is actually the Demon King. Lloyd then repeats words that Jade never had the chance to say to the demon while he was alive. Those words make Weisarn even angrier. However, before he can react, Lloyd rushes forward and unleashes a relentless barrage of punches that deals tremendous damage. Afterward, Lloyd completely overwhelms him. The Demon King cannot believe how much power the boy had been hiding. Finally, Lloyd uses a sacred class technique. The attack forces Weisarn toward a pool of lava rising from beneath the ground. Realizing that touching the lava would be disastrous, the demon immediately uses teleportation. However, Lloyd continues pressing the attack without giving him a chance to recover. During the battle, Lloyd reflects on both his current life and his previous one. He realizes that his greatest passion has always been reading books. No matter how much time passes, there will always be people creating new spells, recording them, and leaving them behind for others to study and appreciate. Lloyd then tells Weisarn that if he has no more tricks left, he will finish him right there. The demon laughs. He explains that what separates the Demon King from ordinary demons is the ability to draw mana directly from the surrounding environment. Immediately afterward, he begins gathering an enormous amount of dark energy. The technique forms a massive sphere that he calls the Deadly Dark Spear. Weisarn confidently declares that even Lloyd's barrier will be useless. If the attack lands, it will send him to another dimension. The demon launches the sphere. To Weisarn's surprise, Lloyd remains completely calm. He simply raises one hand and makes the sphere disappear instantly. The Demon King is left speechless. Unable to believe what just happened, he asks Lloyd whether he can also create and control the Dark Sphere. As Lloyd begins casting the same spell, a flashback reveals the countless books he studied in the past. Those books taught him the technique long ago. For years he tested it by firing the spell at mountains. He also became curious about what would happen if two dark spheres collided. Naturally, he experimented. The result was that both spheres simply canceled each other out. The explanation leaves Weisarn even more stunned. He points out that the spell consumes an absurd amount of mana. Lloyd casually replies that the technique disappointed him because of how inefficient it was. The Demon King cannot believe that a human can cast spells on the same level as a Demon King. Growing desperate, Wyzarn convinces himself that Lloyd must finally be running low on mana. He decides to possess Lloyd's head, however. Both he and Green are completely horrified. For the first time, they experience Lloyd's true power. His mana far surpasses that of the Demon King, one of the strongest beings in the world. Lloyd then decides to finish the battle using the emptiness of space itself. He begins pursuing Wyzarn with several magical spheres. Meanwhile, the others continue fighting the remaining demon. Silpa notices that the demons are suddenly fighting much more clumsily than before. Everyone is confused because they can barely see anything, and it feels as though night has suddenly fallen. Back on the battlefield, Lloyd finally traps Wyzarn. A massive sphere slowly begins absorbing the demon. Realizing that he cannot escape, Wyzarn desperately attempts to leave Jade's body. For a brief moment, the real Jade appears. However, the demon had planned one final trick. Refusing to take any chances, Lloyd immediately finishes him off. Wyzarn vanishes completely. As soon as the demon disappears, daylight returns. Ren instantly realizes that Lloyd destroyed the demon while it was still inside Jade's body. She breaks down in tears. A flashback then reveals a conversation from the past. Jade once told the group about a rumor involving the seventh prince, Lloyd. The kingdom had claimed that the enormous explosion caused when Lloyd was born was nothing more than firework. Jade never believed that story. He was convinced that Lloyd would grow into an incredibly powerful maid. He even told everyone that one day the seventh prince might be able to free them from their curses. And in the end, that prediction turned out to be true. The group scolds Jade after hearing the story, never realizing that one day his words would actually come true. Several hours later, Lloyd, Green, and Shiro finished building Jade's grave. Green admits that he is amazed Lloyd managed to use void magic so quickly, since it is one of the most difficult spells to cast. Lloyd explains that he was only able to do it because he mastered the Shadow Wolf technique. Green then reveals something important. Before Jade died, he successfully transcribed the Shadow Wolf ability. Knowing that someone would eventually come to kill him and take his body, Jade deliberately sealed away part of his abilities, so the demon would never gain access. Meanwhile, Ren is secretly watching Lloyd from a nearby tree. She begins crying after realizing that Jade was able to help Lloyd even after his death. She decides that she should personally thank him. Before she can do so, Albert arrives first and starts talking with his brother. Albert tells Lloyd that he already knows the Assassin Guild asked him to help defeat the demon possessing Jade. Of course, Albert has no idea that the demon was actually the Demon King himself. Even so, Albert says that he is very proud of Lloyd. Soon afterward, the rest of Lloyd's brothers arrive as well. Albert explains that because of the crimes committed by the Assassin Guild, they have been arrested. However, the guild members told the authorities that they wish to spend the rest of their lives serving Lloyd. Because of that, the final decision belongs to Lloyd. Albert also warns him that if they commit crimes again, the responsibility will fall on him. Lloyd becomes serious and tells everyone that he accepts full responsibility for them. He explains that they have become his friends, and that he knows they genuinely care about him. Albert is deeply moved by his answer. He hugs Lloyd and tells him that he has grown up a lot because of the decisions he has been making. Their conversation is interrupted when Tao suddenly arrives, shouting that she came to help. However, after seeing Jade's grave and everyone's gloomy expressions, she quietly begins backing away. One by one, everyone else leaves as well. Lloyd remains behind with Green. During their conversation, Lloyd explains that his new friends possess tremendous potential to develop their magic. Because of that, he believes they deserve a second chance. At the same time, Silpa notices Ren nearby. Soon afterward, Lloyd's friends are officially released. They all decide that from now on, they must become worthy of the trust Lloyd placed in them. Later, everyone gathers for a small celebration. Galilea cannot believe he is surrounded by so many important people. After all, they are sharing a party with 4 princes and the legendary Silver Sword herself. Sometime later, the girls are relaxing in the hot springs that were accidentally created when Lloyd's lava spell mixed with the surrounding water. Ren nervously tells Silpa that she wants to stay by Lloyd's side forever, to properly repay him for everything he has done. Silpa tells her that she should ask Lloyd directly. Almost immediately, Lloyd appears before them. Ren becomes extremely embarrassed. Lloyd agrees to let her stay with him. However, Ren hesitates and asks whether he truly wants someone who used to be an assassin around him. Lloyd accepts her without hesitation. He explains that she still has a lot to learn. The first thing she should do is stop calling herself an assassin. He then points out that if she focuses on developing her poison magic, she could one day separate chemical elements and potentially save countless lives. Tears begin filling Ren's eyes. For her entire life, everyone feared or hated her ability. She always believed she was the only person who could appreciate it, yet from the moment Lloyd met her, he never judged her. Instead, he accepted her power and recognized its value. Lloyd then steps out of the water and asks everyone to promise that they will continue improving them. Filled with tears of happiness, they agree. Ren vows that she will work harder than ever and become a better person from this day forward.